Most of us aren't struggling with a lack of motivation. It's not even discipline we're missing. What's truly absent is clarity. We're not lazy or unqualified. We're simply disconnected from the purpose behind our actions. And without that connection, effort feels burdensome. It feels unnatural. It becomes just another task. Think about the last time you put off something that mattered. Was it really because you didn't know how to do it? Probably not. Was time the issue? Unlikely. The deeper truth is, you hadn't fully invested in it yet. There wasn't a reason powerful enough to make you move. That's the unspoken truth. People often say, just push through, and then suggest tactics, wake up earlier, use a checklist, set a timer. But those are just tools. They won't help without direction. They won't help without purpose. When someone acts from purpose, energy shows up. So does bravery. So does devotion. It's not about certainty. It's about being driven by meaning. That pull keeps you going even when it's tough. I once met a young entrepreneur who had every advantage: funding, contacts, skill, but he remained stuck in the planning phase. He kept saying he needed to push harder, but pushing without purpose only gets you so far. Eventually, pressure wears you out. So I asked him, "Why are you doing this? What's the real reason?" He went silent. Then he admitted, "I guess I just wanted to prove I could." And that was the issue. He wasn't building from impact, he was building from ego. His issue wasn't action, it was alignment. When we lack alignment, resistance gets loud. Every excuse sounds logical. Every temptation looks attractive. Every hurdle feels heavier. But once your purpose is locked in, everything else, when, how, what, falls into place. Purpose clears the path. You can feel the difference in someone who knows their why. Their presence carries substance. It's not louder, it's more grounded. You hear it in how they speak. You see it in how they move. They don't wait for orders, they're already taking steps. Not because it's easy, but because they trust the destination. We're led to think success is about doing more. But it's not just about quantity, it's about alignment. Discipline without meaning becomes punishment. But discipline fueled by purpose becomes meaningful work. It turns obligation into mission. And here's the curveball. Clarity doesn't always show up before action. Sometimes it reveals itself while you're in motion. But you have to ask the questions: why does this matter to me? Who is affected if I quit? What kind of person am I becoming through this process? Because if your motivation is to look impressive, to fit in, or to avoid criticism, it won't hold. It won't sustain you through delays or discomfort. But if your why is grounded in growth, contribution, or legacy, that's different. That's fuel for the long road. Purpose doesn't need to be grand, it just needs to be real. I want to be present for my family. That's real. I want to finish what I start. That's real. I want to solve a problem that's been overlooked. That's real. And when you find your reason, even the hard parts start to feel worthwhile. The truth is, we don't need to force ourselves to act. We need to understand why it's worth it. When you're connected to that, you don't need constant reminders. You just move. And even when you fail, you don't quit because it matters too much. That's the power of beginning with clarity. It's not a trick. It's not about hype. It's about alignment. When your actions reflect your beliefs, effort stops feeling like force. It feels like following your purpose. So next time you stall, don't just reach for another productivity tactic. Ask a deeper question. What made me want this in the first place? Who am I doing it for? What's at stake if I let this go? Because aimless action is just noise. But purposeful action, that's where true momentum lives. And that's how you stop dragging yourself forward and start being pulled by something greater. We have this belief that once we feel motivated, we'll move. That once we feel prepared, we'll act. But reality rarely works that way. Often, action comes first. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Taking action means choosing discomfort, not avoiding it, welcoming it. Because real growth never shows up with a soft landing. We're biologically wired for safety. Our brains are built to favor familiarity, to cling to predictability. So when we contemplate doing something bold, uncertain, or new, our instincts don't whisper, they shout, "Stop, too risky, stay safe." And the easiest way to stay safe? Stay still. Don't hit send. Don't make the call. Don't raise your hand. But deep down, we know the truth. Nothing transformative happens inside the comfort zone. It's useful for rest, but it was never meant to be our permanent address. Every meaningful breakthrough requires stretching beyond it, stepping into discomfort, confronting fear, and yes, embracing some pain. That's not a flaw in the system, that is the system. Discomfort is the toll we pay for growth. It's the price at the gate of every worthwhile goal. You can't become stronger while clutching safety. And what's fascinating is how we reframe this after the fact. Ask anyone proud of a hard-won achievement, a new business, a repaired relationship, a personal milestone, and they'll tell you about the resistance, the doubt, the urge to quit. But they'll also tell you something else. They don't resent the struggle, they're grateful for it, because it gave the result its meaning. We live in a world obsessed with ease. Everything is streamlined, optimized to eliminate friction. But meaningful effort shouldn't be frictionless. The problem isn't that discomfort shows up. The problem is that we treat it like a stop sign, when often it's actually a green light. Resistance isn't always a warning, it's a signal you're on the edge of growth. I once met a woman who'd longed to speak on stage. She had a powerful story, presence, passion, but every time an opportunity came up, she declined. "I'm too nervous," she said. "My heart races, my hands shake, I feel sick." But I asked her, what if that isn't a sign you're not ready? What if it's proof that you are? She had been interpreting nerves as a red flag, but nerves mean it matters. They mean you care. The moment she reframed her fear as part of the process, not a barrier to it, she took the stage and delivered. Fear didn't disappear, it became fuel. See, we wait for fear to vanish before moving. But fear doesn't fade with time. It fades with action. The longer you wait, the louder it grows. The more you hesitate, the heavier it becomes. But the moment you act even imperfectly, it begins to lose its hold. No one is immune to fear. The difference between those who move and those who freeze is not fearlessness, it's movement despite fear. It's choosing to carry the discomfort with you, to speak up even while your voice shakes, to move forward even when doubt clings to your back. And here's the paradox. Discomfort gets easier the more you face it. You build tolerance. You learn to recognize the signs, the fluttering stomach, the shaky hands, and instead of backing away, you lean in. You say, here it is. This is the edge. This is the moment growth begins. Confidence doesn't come before the leap. It's born through the leap. Through trying, failing, adjusting, there's no shortcut. Every uncomfortable action adds another brick to the foundation of identity. You're not just doing the hard thing, you're becoming someone who does hard things. We have to stop glorifying ease. The easiest path isn't always the best one. If your goal is growth, then the struggle is not your enemy, it's your evidence. You're not falling behind when life gets hard, you're falling into alignment. So when that voice tells you, this is too much, you're not ready, this is uncomfortable, acknowledge it. Don't silence it, but don't obey it either. Thank it for trying to protect you. Then act anyway. Because the version of yourself you're seeking, the bolder, braver, more powerful version, doesn't live inside your comfort. It lives beyond it. It lives on the other side of the email, the phone call, the raised hand. You don't need to eliminate fear, you need to face it. Expect it. Embrace it with intention. Because what lies beyond it isn't just progress, it's transformation. There's a difference, an important one, between motion and action. Motion mimics progress. It feels like effort. It gives us the illusion of productivity. But only action actually moves us forward. Motion is preparing. Action is executing. And if we're honest with ourselves, most of us spend too much time in motion, organizing, planning, researching, yet avoiding the one thing that would actually change everything starting. Motion feels good because it's safe. You're thinking, but not risking. You're preparing, but not exposing. You're doing just enough to feel busy, but not enough to feel vulnerable. You can design a product for months and never launch it. You can brainstorm a book for years and never write a page. You can analyze, survey, outline without ever stepping into the unknown. But action? Action demands risk. It opens you to failure, judgment, imperfection. That's why it's hard. That's why we avoid it. We convince ourselves we're working, but what we're really doing is orbiting the goal, afraid to land. We hope that more preparation will somehow shield us from discomfort, but it won't. Real growth, real success. It all lives beyond the boundary of planning. It exists in imperfect movement, in trying, failing, adjusting, in starting before you feel ready. Because here's the truth, no one wants to admit you will never feel 100% ready. That perfect moment you're waiting for, it never comes. The people you admire are the ones doing the work, making the moves, building something meaningful. They didn't wait for readiness. They began. Scared, uncertain, unpolished, they started. And through that, they built the confidence you see now. Confidence isn't the precondition, it's the byproduct. How many times have you told yourself, I just need a bit more time to think? Sounds logical, sounds responsible. But deep down, how often is that really just fear in disguise? We use thought as a shield. We dress up procrastination as preparation, but none of it matters without action. Reading about health doesn't make you healthy. Attending webinars doesn't build a business. Thinking about change doesn't change you. Only action does. Real progress happens in messy drafts, in uncomfortable calls, in awkward first steps. It's not glamorous. It's real. And there's a moment we all face, the one between knowing and doing. It's a moment of decision, where planning is no longer progress and the only thing left is to leap. That's where most freeze, because it feels like a cliff. But it's not. It's just a step. A small one, heavy with emotion. But the weight doesn't come from the step, it comes from the stories we attach to it. The irony is that once you move, fear starts to fade. Not completely, but enough to give you room to breathe. Action creates clarity. Doing reveals what thinking can't. You learn what works by trying. You earn certainty through movement. And it's not recklessness, it's courage. It's accepting that awkwardness is a part of the process, not a signal to stop. Many people stay stuck waiting for the perfect plan. But life doesn't offer certainty, it offers opportunity. And those often arrive wrapped in doubt, discomfort, and risk. If you wait for total clarity, you'll miss them. Starting before you feel ready doesn't mean being reckless. It means understanding that action is what shapes you. That taking the role makes you grow into it, not the other way around. Just like a child learning to walk doesn't wait for perfect balance, we have to be willing to stumble forward. That's how learning works. That's how becoming happens. Stop waiting to be flawless. Start being real. Send the email. Write the first sentence. Launch the draft. Take the risk. Because motion may feel satisfying, but only action creates momentum. Planning has value, but it's meant to lead to movement, not replace it. Maps are useful, but they don't walk the road. You do, one step at a time, especially when it's hard, especially when it's scary. That's where the shift happens. That's when you stop fantasizing about who you could be and start becoming them. And once you take that first uncomfortable step, something shifts. You realize the fear was inflated, the doubt was exaggerated, and the barrier you imagined was more mental than real. We spend so much time anticipating failure that we forget what's waiting on the other side of action, momentum, clarity, and transformation. The world often celebrates results, outcomes, and finish lines, but none of that is possible without the start. Starting is the gate. Starting is the hinge. It's where all change begins, and unfortunately, where most people stop. Just before the first move, hesitation creeps in. It shows up like a weight in your chest, a twist in your gut, a swarm of what-ifs in your mind. What if I'm not ready? What if I mess it up? What if people laugh? That voice will whisper the biggest lie of all: tomorrow will be better. But tomorrow rarely delivers what today avoids. You don't move forward by standing still, and you don't need every answer to begin. What you need is a reason that matters more than your fear, a reason stronger than your excuses, a reason that reminds you that staying stuck costs more than taking the risk. For many of us, that reason isn't loud or dramatic, it's a quiet thought. I can't keep living the same day over and over. That realization, that spark of dissatisfaction is often what fuels real change. Because sometimes it's not ambition that drives us, it's the exhaustion of stagnation. And when you finally start, even if no one sees it, something powerful awakens. Not the kind of momentum that explodes overnight, but the slow, steady kind that builds quietly, the kind that compounds, the kind that moves you further than you imagined, one uncomfortable step at a time. You don't have to be loud. You don't have to post about it. You don't have to declare it to the world. You just have to move. Starting doesn't require speed. It requires direction. Even if you move slowly, even if you move clumsily, even if you're terrified, especially if you're terrified. Readiness isn't a checkpoint you arrive at. It's a story you create through action. You don't become capable by standing still. You become capable by showing up, trying, failing, and learning. The people you look up to, the ones who've built something meaningful, they all had a day one. And that day probably looked like yours, full of fear, doubt, and uncertainty. But they moved anyway. Because they understood something most don't. The first step doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be real. That's where courage lives, not in grand gestures, but in small, brave beginnings. In trying again after a setback. In being willing to look foolish, to be seen, to be vulnerable. And here's the truth, starting isn't a one-time thing. Every new chapter, every new level, every new pursuit will ask you to begin again, to leave comfort, to let go of what you know for what could be. That's not regression, that's growth. There will be days when it feels like you're making no progress, when the grind seems pointless, when no one notices. But those are the days that build you. Those are the days that separate those who wish from those who work. Because the ones who finish are the ones who keep showing up even when it's silent, even when it's hard. Don't wait for motivation. Don't wait for perfect timing. The signal is already within you. That persistent thought, that recurring dream, that whisper you've been ignoring, that's the call. And the only way to answer is to act. Starting is a promise, a vow to yourself that your potential matters, that your life is worth effort, that you won't keep waiting to become who you already are. It's not about being the best. It's about being better than the version of you who never starts. It's about stepping into your own narrative, even if you don't know the ending, even if you stumble along the way. Because clarity doesn't come from thinking, it comes from movement, from testing, from building, from breaking and trying again. That's how direction is found, not by waiting, but by starting and paying attention. In the beginning, you may feel like you're the only one walking this path, like no one else understands what you're aiming for. But that's not true. All over the world, people have stood exactly where you are now. They've doubted, hesitated, feared, and still they stepped forward. You're not alone in your uncertainty, and you won't be alone in your growth. Start small if that's all you can manage. Start scared if fear is still in your chest, but start. Begin with what you have, where you are, and who you are. Don't wait for it to get easier. Don't wait until the doubt is gone. Because thinking doesn't make things real, doing does. And once you begin, you'll notice a shift. The world seems to respond. People appear. Resources emerge. Opportunities align. Not because of coincidence, but because life moves for those who move first. It's not about luck. It's about alignment between what you want and what you're willing to act on. So whatever you've been delaying, the message, the idea, the habit, the leap, stop asking if the timing is right. Stop waiting for approval. Start. Start with trembling hands and a steady heart. Start not because it's simple, but because it's time. Because the only way to change your life is to begin. There's a popular myth that discipline is a gift, something you either have or you don't. As if certain people are born with a supernatural ability to wake up early, ignore distractions, and do hard things without hesitation. And if you're not one of them, well, too bad. But that's not how it works. Discipline isn't a personality trait. It's not about being naturally driven or lucky. It's a muscle. And like any muscle, it grows with use. It strengthens through struggle. It's forged in repetition. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to keep showing up, especially on the days you don't want to. We think we need more motivation, but what we really need are more reps. We wait for the right feeling, the perfect moment, the spark of inspiration. But growth doesn't live in comfort. Strength doesn't come from convenience. It comes from doing the thing even when every part of you says not to. Discipline lives in the quiet moments, the ones without applause, without recognition. When it's raining and you still go run. When you're tired and you still write. When no one sees you and you still give your best. That's where it's built. Those small decisions, they're not small, they stack, they form identity. One day you stop saying, I want to be disciplined, and start saying, this is who I am. That identity shift is the real reward. You don't become disciplined overnight. You become it through thousands of small acts of follow-through. You don't have to climb the whole mountain today. You just have to take the next step. Discipline isn't about intensity, it's about consistency. And yes, it's hard, but it's supposed to be. Effort is the filter that separates intention from impact. Think about the people you respect, the ones who seem unshakable, grounded, dependable. You're not seeing a gift. You're seeing practice. You're seeing the result of countless small decisions that no one ever applauded. You're not seeing the early mornings when they didn't want to rise, the lonely nights when they could have quit, the hard talks they had with themselves when no one was watching. That's the work. That's what discipline really is. Not talent, not inspiration. Repetition. The best part? Discipline is available to everyone. You don't need a special background or extraordinary talent. You don't need to feel ready. You just need to decide that this matters enough to keep showing up, to keep the promises you make to yourself, especially when it's hard. And yes, you'll stumble, you'll miss a day, you'll hit walls. That's not failure, it's part of the process. Discipline isn't about perfection, it's about persistence. It's about returning again and again, even after you fall. It's having the humility to begin again and the courage to keep going. The people who achieve great things aren't the ones who never mess up. They're the ones who don't let a single failure become their story. If discipline is a muscle, then failure is just part of the workout. Every missed rep is a test. Do you walk away or do you come back? Each time you come back, you strengthen the identity of someone who doesn't quit. That's where true progress happens, not in the flawless performance, but in the decision to rise again. That's the victory, not perfect execution, but relentless return. But there's something we must understand. Discipline isn't about punishment. It's not about grinding yourself into exhaustion or pushing beyond every limit. It's about alignment. It's about saying, this matters to me. Maybe you don't enjoy every piece of the process, but you're in love with the outcome. And that gives it weight. That gives it meaning. It's not the habit itself that's valuable, it's what that habit builds. It's who you become through it, the impact it creates. When you understand your why, discipline stops feeling like restriction and starts feeling like devotion. A devotion to the future, to your growth, to those you love, to the person you're becoming. Every small act of follow-through is a vote cast for your next evolution, a vote for your future self. It's easy to look at others and think, I could never do that. But what if you looked at their process instead of their outcome? What if you saw that what made them great wasn't one big moment, but thousands of tiny choices made with intention? That path is open to you too. You don't need to become someone else. You just need to become consistent with your best self. The version of you that shows up, the version that keeps promises, that acts with intention even when it's boring, especially when it's boring. And here's one more thing, you don't have to do this alone. Find others who value progress, not perfection. Surround yourself with people who are learning, failing, growing. Not just those who inspire you, but those who remind you showing up matters. Effort matters. You matter even on your worst days. Discipline isn't a destination, it's a direction, a mindset, a way of living that says, I'm willing to invest in the life I want, even when it's difficult. Once you see it that way, you realize discipline isn't something to dread, it's something to practice, something to respect, and eventually something to be proud of.